Okay, no one said about it.
All right, we're recording.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to call the Village of Blair's board meeting to order. Look for an approval of the agenda. So moved.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, public appearances and citizen comments on items not listed on this agenda. Items will not be debated or acted upon at this meeting, but will be referred to the proper staff or committee if action is required. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone that would like to speak? Okay, hearing none. We'll go on to item 4, approval of the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent. Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, maybe you're gonna do them all.
I thought we were not your job, Nessie.
I'm in. I was reading the minutes over and my name's on there a lot.
You're active, yes, sir.
New business. Item 8, consideration, discussion, use of village pool house for the Blair's Cares World Euchre Federation Championship. And I believe Shelley wanted to speak on this, so.
Really, if you have questions, so our idea, our request this year, and Mary is also dialing in by phone. She's out of town for work today, so wasn't able to join you in person. But our hope was 2 things: to use the pool house for registration to just help with the flow of people in. We turned so many people away last year for the doubles tournament. We're going to try to actually offer 2 sessions of the doubles tournament and then a championship. So we would, in essence, double the number of people and have a flow throughout the day on Saturday and Sunday. And so our hope was to use the pool house for registration, but then also as a secondary source of bathrooms. Last year, based on the special event application, because there was alcohol served, you required us to have portable toilets there, and they were not utilized at all. So we spent over $700 to bring in portable toilets that really weren't utilized. So it wasn't a good use of our funds. And ultimately, any of the money that we raised from the event, we're putting back into the community. So we're asking for consideration to be able to use the pool house as our overflow for bathrooms and for the registry. So, I don't know, Mary, if you have anything to add to that.
Nope, I think you hit it on the head, Shelley. That's really the big thing. Plus, if we have bad weather, checking people in with kind of a roof would be really nice. I mean, I guess the other option would be we could get a tent, but we checked people in right at the entryway, and we just had a huge line. And so to kind of like split that up and have a couple places where we could do it, especially the fact that we're planning on having more people, I think it would just really help.
I don't see how we cannot do it. I mean, it's a win-win for
Yeah.
so many things.
Also.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it helps the business, it helps the community.
Yeah.
It brings people in. How can you say no to that?
My only question, will there be parking on 3rd Avenue then?
No, the street is closed.
I know.
So we submitted a like an event map to Warren with the initial application, which we haven't routed around for signatures yet. So we haven't given it to Jeff. We haven't gone to the EMS and others, just because we, would have had to modify it again if you turned down the request for the pool house. But the intent, what we were hoping to do is actually, last year, Joe said that we had to close the entire street. And one of the things that we're hoping that we could do this year is put the full barriers up, on the, what would it be? The east end, but bring the west end in a little bit so we could use the end for handicap parking and have it partially blocked, but then not also block the people who live in the, the building there, because they came down and were very upset that for the weekend they were going to be able to access their parking that's alongside that's house office building, right? So we thought we could accommodate both by keeping you know, like cones or having it partially blocked off just for handicap parking only. And then having the more solid barrier be like in front of where the office is, the best house office area is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how is that? Is that a fee that we're gonna charge or?
So that was my other question for the board. So normally when we have somebody reserve a facility at the village, we would charge a fee. We don't really have a fee we've never really reserved the pool house. So up to the board if you want to charge a nominal fee for this, especially with use of
The
toilets.
custodial and.
$50.
What's the special event fee for like the gazebo in the park?
So it varies depending on which park you choose, but for Village Park, it's resident, non-resident fees, so I believe it's 35 and 50. For 50 and then 50 and 75 for vets, somewhere around there, and I think non-resident for vet is 75 or 100, excuse me. We do have a birthday bubbles, that's the closest thing to like utilizing the pool.
Yeah, what you pay for
And that's 150,
You know, I think
but that, I mean, obviously that's for pool parties, we're paying lifeguard, you know, that's kind of a different.
Is there gonna be cleaning costs for the bathroom?
that's what it's.
We've never actually rented out the pool house bathroom before, so I mean, I'm assuming we're gonna have to clean it, obviously, before, you know.
Could you, whatever, do we have custodial service here? We could
after.
put a fee on a 3-hour, you know, cleaning fee plus the whatever else we want to tack onto that.
Who cleans it?
I think Megan does.
Yeah, typically it's part of our opening and then winterization is the
mean, that's
staff,
fair.
aka Megan. I think the lifeguards help her get things ready, but.
So the one question that I had too, like, I'm not sure when Megan starts the process to get the pool ready, but our event is the 17th and 18th of May. So I would think that would be right around the time that she would be prepping the pool house anyway.
Yeah,
Really cool.
yeah, she usually is in there like right at the beginning of May, just like getting stuff going, and then we usually call in a plumber in May to get that process going. I mean, around that time, we're probably, you know, getting close to filling the pool or starting to fill the pool. Because this year we opened June 1. So yeah, it's in terms of like having to move up, you know, opening, I don't think that's a concern.
Yeah, and Megan seconded that
Yeah.
too. She said she could make it work.
Yeah.
I think the amount of good that they do, I wouldn't really worry about charging anything except for if we talk to Megan and she's like, yeah, I'm going to have to come in special amount or whatever, and we find out what she wants for it. Or
I think we should charge just because then other groups in the future are gonna see what has been done in the past. And I don't think it should be a big cost, but like, I don't think Megan should have to clean up after a festival bathroom use. Like, I think we should hire
Yeah.
cleaners to do that. So maybe just whatever that cost is.
What if you did
plus-
like, I don't know what the fee normally is, but if you did like a $70 or $50 fee and then added a $50 cleaning charge? And I don't know.
I could reach out to our cleaners at Clean Village Hall and ask people what they would charge to clean up the pool house
Right.
after.
And then again.
I mean, the good thing with the pool house is it's like concrete floor. I mean, it's not a, it's not a,
like
yeah,
apartment.
state-of-the-art facility.
And the reality is most people, you know, unless they used to go to the bathroom and they're, you know, right, getting ready to go through registration, most people are gonna use the facilities within the guest house.
Right.
It's just more convenient.
And this could just be a test run. I mean,
Yeah.
we can see what it.
I mean, honestly, one of the most, like, it sounds silly, but like the paper towel for those, it's like that kind of stuff has gotten so expensive. I mean, that would be. Obviously, you know, we have a relationship with New Glarus Cares that if something gets broken, like if they, I mean, this has happened before, unfortunately, but if a sink gets, you know, pushed off, well, not the pool house, but you know, I know this has happened. I mean, we have a relationship with them that I'm sure
Right. Well,
we
and
want to take
we
care of it.
have to have event insurance
Right,
as well.
right.
Right,
Yeah.
so
That was gonna be my question. I wanted to know if you're insured under us or.
we have to carry our own.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there trash cans in toilet?
They are, but they're just like normal size, so that is something that, you know, I think, you know, Glarus Cares would take into consideration when they're gonna have to, you know, check
Maybe
those
one
and change those
big one
out.
there. They can just fill their cup.
Yeah, and I think we learned from last year that, we can get additional trash cans from
Yes.
fire department.
Oh,
Yeah.
And so we'll have those available outside of the venue. We can use those near the Get a full house as well.
Well, what if we did like $100? That would be the 50 that the village park would normally be plus a nominal fee for heating and water,
Or we could
whatever else.
wait until you investigate it,
Yeah.
whatever.
I do agree with Becca, only because the village park is utilized by many other festivals, and, you know, I just don't want to necessarily set a precedence, although we are confident New Glarus Cares would take good care of it, that maybe isn't the same for everybody else, and so I don't want to put us in a position where we're like, well, you let them do it, you know.
Can we,
Makes a lot of sense.
Just to start with, get out.
like that, can we approve it based upon, I mean, we'll approve it, but we'll wait for your numbers to come in, or do you just want to blanket improve it right now? I mean,
I think I'm comfortable with $100, and if it ends up being way more, we can adjust next year.
Yeah.
good, yeah, okay.
You guys feel okay about that?
I'll
Yeah,
make a
I think that's
motion
fair.
to.
I guess my only other question before you motion is for paper towels. I mean, there are the dispensers up there that you have to refill. I mean, is New Glarus Cares planning on?
We'll have
Refilling.
people in the
Okay.
registration area,
Okay,
so we can absolutely do that.
Okay.
if needed.
You
okay.
have to put that in your motion.
No, I just, there's a key to get in them, so we have to make sure that,
Sure.
yeah, so.
I would just leave it if it's inside the pool house, you know.
Or maybe it's
Yeah,
something where New Glarus Cares just supplies rolls of paper towel. Honestly, that's way cheaper than the paper towels that are in those dispensers.
Oh, sure.
I don't know, that could be something that is worked out at a later.
Okay, so you want a motion to approve renting the pool?
Pool house.
The pool
And
house
bathrooms.
to New Glarus Cares,
For $100.
$100.
For the youth return.
I motion to approve renting the pool house to New Glarus Cares for $100.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item Item B, consideration discussion village hall backup server. 24 in your packet.
Yeah, so it was recommended by our IT vendor that we replace the current backup server in Village Hall. And one of the reasons we're looking to do this now with this year's funds is next year, there's a Windows 10 conversion, which I think Jeff has shared about, but there's gonna be costs associated with that we have to update Windows 10 on many of our Village Hall computers. So we thought this would be a good way to spread out that cost. We also have a little bit of ARPA money left to apply to this, but we think it's a good use of surplus funds and obviously a necessary.
Where is that server location?
In the PD, actually. Our server room is in the PD. I'm not sure why, when we did the PD
Yeah,
remodel, we didn't put it over here, but
Well, you,
and that could be something if and when we do some Village Hall remodeling. That could be something we look at doing, moving that server room back over here. 'Cause it is hard for obviously the PD, but when we have TDS or somebody come, that's a secure location and I can't even get into it. So I have to have somebody from the PD, so.
no, they don't have a lot of extra room either.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's in their server room, so.
Okay, I moved to it.
Chelsea,
Yeah,
is your backup server back there?
that's what computer know-how. I've never actually seen it either. I wouldn't even know what a backup server looks like.
Backup server should be somewhere else. Everything's right there.
Yeah.
If something happens to
Right.
Billy, you lose everything.
I asked one of the guys that work at computer now. It was not Chris, who was our main contact, and he thought that it was in the server room as well. But
No,
I don't know.
think it is. I
Yeah,
think it sits on the
Yeah.
box. So like for the PD, that external drive.
Yeah.
for 2 weeks, I change them out and I
Right.
literally take it home and put it in the safe.
yeah. I can talk to them about moving that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not an IT professional by any means, so. But I believe it's in the server.
I'll move to approve the purchase of the village hall backup server using the remaining ARPA dollars and surplus funds.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, consideration discussion resolution 2435, established wage for full-time employees for January 1, 2025 to December 31st, 2025. That's on the next page of page 25.
Anything different on here from the last time we did this?
Just one correction, we forgot to include the COLA and the probationary period increase for the public works director, Scott. So I just wanted to update that in the reso.
Gotcha.
So this is, what did we get at 2.5?
3%.
3%, yeah.
And then he gets a 50
Yeah,
or a
so-
50-cent bump on January 1.
I move to approve resolution R 2435.
Second. Second something. I was going
Anyone else wants to jump in?
I want to keep it moving.
Okay. Do we have a motion and second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay, item D, consideration discussion of water reservoir project disbursement request number 4 on page 26. Next one.
I'm happy to answer questions about this, but this is just our fourth draw request for the water reservoir project. Includes engineering, DN tanks, which is the last amount, and the contract with Bajam for the connecting main.
It looks great for my driveway.
Yeah.
I always wonder, I haven't been up there, how close, it looks like the tank is done.
Yes, the tank is substantially done. There's just a few things that they'll have to come back for in 2025. One being it still needs to be painted.
Yeah.
So it won't be painted till the spring.
Okay.
The main is pretty much all the way done. I believe it'll be completely done this week.
And that hooks up where down on,
We were just.
Down by the apartments, I believe.
okay.
What's got?
Okay, okay.
And then in 2025, the SCADA work will be completed. So that has not started at all yet. So that's the communication system that allows the water reservoir to communicate with the rest of the water system.
Okay. So everything's on schedule basically for.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
you said.
I mean, ideally, we wanted to finish everything this year, but the tank is pretty much done and can be in service if we wanted to now. But so
Okay.
that's a good thing.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
One thing that maybe we should make the board aware of, a booster station for up there. I think Lauren was told it might be a couple of years before we get a booster station.
I was told 2 years.
What is a booster station?
It boosts water to any homes that would be built up on that hill.
Oh.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have any water or just low water pressure,
Yeah.
Water pressure.
And we're gonna have to put one up by the old tank for the other development, but they can build like where the school is gonna be built before they're gonna need any booster.
Yeah, so the
So
old
they
school
could-
property, some houses can be built there without a booster station until you get to a certain elevation, and then you need an upgraded or new booster station.
And why is it because that piece of equipment just takes that long to get, or what? Why does it take so long?
Yeah, there's like
No. It's kinda
over a
like-
year lead times,
And how much does a booster station cost?
over $1 million. I think the east side one, we're budgeting like 1.75 million. So I'm actually currently talking to developers for both, and we're likely going to utilize TID funds to help finance a booster station. And so I'm working through those numbers with them. But that's why it's helpful to have a TIF, because that can help finance those costly projects that a developer might not want to pick up.
So we didn't have this booster station factored in at all yet. We're factoring it in now, is what you're saying? Like if you're working on pricing now, that's not something we already had built in with this plan when we did this water
For
reservoir.
the water reservoir?
Yeah.
No, because that should be triggered by new development.
Gotcha.
We wouldn't just, I mean, we could just build it, but that would be kind of a risk that we're taking, like hoping that this would redevelopment. I think this is a better situation where we know we have an interested developer. We can leverage the increment that they're going to generate with their development and then pay for that booster station.
Gotcha.
Right now, there's actually two developers, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Was gonna add something. So that was never mentioned before that we would need one. When did it occur?
It's always been
Yeah.
mentioned.
Did I?
Yeah, it's always been, even though we built a tank, we knew we were gonna have to put a booster
You
station
knew, okay.
on both ends.
So yeah, the water reservoir, it seems like it's solving an east side thing, but it's solving a village-wide thing. And the booster station is
I
gonna
see.
solve an east side
Okay,
thing.
I guess I
An
heard
east side, but
maybe I didn't understand. So if that develops on the east side and new homes go in, because it's taking so long, will new potential property owners be made aware of that water pressure?
we can't even get houses built until the booster is done. So we can't even start developing houses until the booster's ready. And I just had a meeting on last Friday with the developer. They're aware of that. They're gonna start looking at designing the booster station now, so they can start
Okay.
going on
Is there-
that timeline.
Is there a remote chance that it could possibly be here and somebody calls and says, oh, we have one here, or not?
That they were gonna look into that. So
Oh.
they were gonna talk with some their engineering office in Iowa, I guess, recently did a project like that, and they were gonna ask them if they had any tips for maybe shortening the lead time situation. So they're looking into that.
Okay,
I move to approve water reservoir project disbursement request number 4.
I will second.
Congratulations.
any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Okay, item 6, the library. Consideration discussion library design presentation.
I think I let you, so.
Outstanding, Frank, you should sit here.
Well, we got another.
Yeah, I
Oh,
got
I can scoot up here as well.
That looks okay, all right.
Okay. And then even if there's a flag time too.
So can we get that?
Yeah, do you want this?
No, I'm good. I'm perfectly good. Thank you.
Okay,
No worries.
I'm here for this.
you're used to.
Used to it, right? All right, well, for those of you that don't know, my name is Brett Rottinghouse. I'm with OPN Architects out of Madison. We've been working, for the last couple months now on developing the new library here in New Glarus. Right now, the floor plan sits at roughly 9,500 square feet, maybe between 9,500 and 9,700 square feet. We've went through a programming exercise with the library, trying to understand what the needs of the village are and what that starts to look like from a floor plan standpoint. We've also started looking at the site and what is available to the site and what might need to happen with the site. Then we started looking at some massings, and by massings, I mean just general shapes of the building. Not looking at materiality or anything like that yet, but we're just trying to get an understanding of what this is going to look like. So you mentioned there on the site, originally we were presented with this square roughly right here. So the backside of this orange up to this dashed line here. And that was the extent that we were given originally to design within. Part of the issue that came across that, which was driven by that, was an easement from the DNR. And Lauren, correct me if I misstate something here. The DNR had an easement over the eastern portion of this plot of land. And that meant that we couldn't build or consider that a part of this property. Through conversations, design, layout, and everything, it was discovered that it would be better if we could shift the building a little bit further east, and I'll get into what that means here in a little bit, which then Lauren was able to have conversations with the DNR, discovered that they were okay giving up that portion of land, which then allowed us to take the building and shift it a little bit further east. Why that's important is a couple reasons. There's a significant grade on the western portion of the land here. So much so that we were starting to get concerned, would people be able to hop onto the roof? So getting the building a little bit further away from that property line helped with that issue. So that kind of sets the why we positioned the building where we did. I'll go through the floor plan here, or the site plan here in a little bit, and help explain some of the moves that we made. So Fifth Avenue here, we really wanted to have the main door present itself to Fifth Ave as your main entrance into the building here, which then you'd be presented, and I'll get into all the interior functions of the building here in a little bit. But this would be your main entrance. On the back side of the building, this green space that you see here is what we're calling the reading garden. So this would be kind of nestled into the hill here with a series of terraced retaining walls. So instead of just having a solid 10-foot concrete wall, we wanted to break that down with some terraces, some planters. So maybe we can get some vines or something like that that kind of soften that edge, as well as give patrons a nice place to go and visit the exterior of the building. It still feels like you're kind of inside the building. Because this is nestled into a hill, that also meant that we needed to have two ways for people to get out of that room. We had to, even though it's not inside the building, we had to think about it as though it's inside the building. So we had to have an exit to the north, which was already provided because of setbacks. And we needed to provide a secondary exit around the building. Otherwise, we would have had to plan for them to exit back through the building, regardless of whether the building is open or not. Hence why we really wanted to shift the building off that property line a bit more. Other items that we are considering is there is currently showing a green space here to the east. We are trying to get some parking. This is still very undeveloped at this point. We've just kind of thrown parking. We're trying to get at least a couple stalls there for handicap stalls. It would also function as loading and unloading for UPS deliveries, whatever might be there. Sorry, I do want to come back. This area, this is just, it's shown as an idea right now. It would be shown a little bit different, a little bit softer, but we're thinking it would be nice to potentially have a stage on the exterior of the building, just raised a little bit. You could do book readings in the summer. It could just have furniture on it and a nice place for people to sit and enjoy the exterior. So this is an example of what that could look like. So this is teak, as call it a patio. We would explore that, but we would also explore other options as well. But from an aesthetic standpoint, the looks, this is kind of what we were initially thinking. And then also having it softened by some of that landscape right behind it. So now if we talk more about the building, that entry plaza that we talked about on the site plan, you would come into the building, the main circulation desk, so that you're welcomed into the building. To the left is primarily the children's wing. To the right is the adult and young adult collection. So right when you come into the building, you're presented with an option going left or right. This does a couple things. We always try to think about libraries as a gradient of noise and privacy. So you take your noisy parts and you push them closer to the entryway, and you take your quieter parts and try to give them a little bit more privacy away from that main entry lobby. So when you come into the children's area, not all of this is worked out yet. We're still testing collection and everything. But you would have your main collection, computers, a reading corner that starts to engage that entry corridor visually through windows and everything. On the opposite side is where Caitlin's corner would be located. So a little bit more secluded, a place where a parent could take their child and read to them in that corner, but it's not as active as the other corner. The other corner will have fun furniture in it, things for kids to kind of race around. I know my kids would be jumping from one to one. The other place is really for meant to be a little bit more calm. To the northern portion of the plan here is where the children's program room would be. So in a library of this size, square footage is at a premium. So we try to think about how you can use spaces in multiple different ways. So the children's program room, right now we're showing a larger bifolding door so that when that room doesn't have a program in it, it could be utilized for kids to go and play, have toys. You can have furniture set up in there for a bunch of different purposes, but it allows you to maximize the use of that building. Visually, we would then have windows that go out to that outdoor reading area. We're deciding right now whether we have doors in that would connect that. That's really kind of a security piece that we would get into once we get further down and having that connection. A sensory room, a study room, kind of right near that front entry desk. Again, trying to create those spaces where it's easy for staff to keep an eye on what's going on in those rooms. If we go to the adult wing, we're showing a series of areas where furniture could be set for people just to sit and read a book. Towards the front area here is where we're showing a fireplace. We're exploring whether it's double-sided or not. We're not into the details on that yet, but that's kind of a pie-in-the-sky idea right now that we're looking into. Windows throughout so that we were bringing in as much natural light as possible. Towards the top here is where the young adults are. Young adults is always an interesting conversation because they want all the privacy in the world, but you want to be able to keep an eye on them, right? To make sure they're not up to anything. So the best way we can do that in our experience is we give them a privacy area, but we make it open to the general public. So it's not just the staff that are having to keep an eye on them, but it's also just a person there that's reading a book. They see something going on. We talked about cameras to keep an eye on that space. The problem with cameras is they're really good for going back and seeing what happened as opposed to preventing something from happening. So we want to make sure that it's open, but kind of give them their privacy. Adjacent to that, we would have a 6 to 8 person study room or small meeting room. And adjacent to that, another meeting room that could be used as a help room or something like that. Back here is the administration area. I won't go through all the details on that, but we've been working pretty closely with Amy and her team to understand exactly how that needs to be arranged. Above that is where the multi-purpose classroom is located. Right off of that would be the staff room / kitchenette or catering kitchen, we call it quite often, because you don't want you want to avoid having a stovetop, because in a commercial building, then you have to have a hood, and those get very expensive very quick. So we try to avoid that. So we call it a catering kitchen. Adjacent to that is a storage room. So it's meant to hold all the furniture and all the support stuff that makes that room operate, as well as help room there too. Presentation wall would be to the north here. So a couple things as we talk about this multi-purpose classroom. It really started to land itself on the northern edge of the floor plan for a couple of reasons. One, it wanted to be a little bit secluded. You want to control natural light into that space. So northern light is easier to control than that harsh southern light. Two, the potential of after hours. So the library's potential to rent this out after hours or have separate functions after hours. Really wants to make sure that when you allow access to that after hours, you're not providing access to the rest of the library. So how we talked about doing that was providing a secondary vestibule that could be used for after hours. And then you have to, if you have a function there, have restrooms that also support that space. So how we would accomplish that is having some sort of gate or something like that that would allow for the rest of the library to be closed down and not accessible, but that classroom to function after hours. Any questions on the floor plan? before we move on.
All of the donated books, that you collect that are at people's homes, well, would there be room for those?
Not all of them.
Yeah.
So the present room does look quite large on that picture. It'll store a lot of them, but we're still gonna need
Yeah.
offsite storage. There's just so many.
And that's always one that we plan for, but there's never enough space.
Can you zoom in on it a little bit?
Yeah.
Make it a little bigger?
To a particular space or just.
Nope, that's much better. Okay.
And so this is where I was saying earlier, that outdoor reading garden space, we want it to be softer. What we were showing in the other rendition was very hard. I know my kids would knock their head on that corner and it wouldn't be good. So we want it to be softer, a little bit more inviting into a space there. So designs on all of this are still evolving. This is just kind of a point where we're at right now. Other questions, comments?
I think it looks great.
So this is, we're always doing things in 3D. So whenever we're drawing floor plans, we are constantly modeling it and trying to understand what it's going to look and feel like visually. So from an aerial, this is kind of how things are starting to lay out. One thing you're not seeing are the sidewalks that would take you to trash enclosure, which is right here. So the trash bins that we've talked about with the library so far, what they would need, they would be able to store those in this room here so that after hours, you don't have to worry about people getting access to them or anything. And then they would just be wheeled out to pick up. And then, as I mentioned, the parking is still evolving. But you're starting to get a sense of the terraced retaining wall that we're showing there.
Can I ask a question? Can you go back to the layout? And this is just something that came to light just in lieu of our own local news recently. When you have a layout and safety is into consideration and you have an in and an out, is it to the advantage like you have right there where say you had something, hopefully never, but a tragic situation where someone came in that was unwanted, that you have just one exit?
Like, are you talking from like this space here?
Yeah, because what I was thinking of, well, why isn't there a hallway on the side where the trash in that is, but you would not, correct me if I'm wrong, you would not want in and out all over. Is that correct? Is that why it's designed?
So it's interesting you bring that up. We actually had that drawn, that very thing. This corridor was mirrored and this vestibule extended all the way down. And there were a lot of conversations around why it wasn't great. One, as I mentioned, square footage is at a premium. So it really started to lock everything down. It prevented us. So essentially these meeting rooms just didn't work because we didn't have enough space in the building. So now the building had to grow, which we're trying to be mindful of budget and everything too. 3, we were able to achieve exits from the staff area back out of the building. So you'll notice we put a door here so that people could get out. If the staff ever were caught in a situation where they have to take patrons into the staff area because God forbid something happens, they're able to get out of that space. We never want to trap anyone anywhere. Also with this corridor, people are able to get outside and then out around the building. That's another reason we talked about putting some sort of exit in the children's area. The children's area is a more delicate conversation because you have to balance safety of someone coming in and causing harm to everybody with someone causing harm to a specific child. So you never want to create an area where someone can take a child and not be seen. So that's, if a kid is in here playing by themselves, a parent is over here, you don't want to create a situation where someone could come and grab that child and take them out of the building. It's horrible to say,
I know.
these are the things that we have to run through our mind to
Right,
try to
yeah.
make sure that it doesn't.
Well, and also a child running out of, like, I have a 2-year-old that would sprint.
Oh my God, yes.
So,
You can't take
You
your
actually-
2-year-old into consideration.
yeah, I know, she's a little crazy. Yeah.
But yes, those are other things too. That we have to consider.
It's unfortunate we have to have that decision, but, or discussion, but I was thinking, you know, in that situation, because if, let's say, for example, staff had to get out, I thought to myself, well, they can get out and they can actually access the children quite easily and get them out. So, but my question was, I just wondered if you ever thought of a hallway there, but obviously you did, or a in and out.
And we haven't ran this, so we always develop the floor plan and then we kind of put it through our code rigor evaluation.
Mhm.
We may get through this and find that we have to add an exterior door here and there just to make sure that we're providing, if it's a fire, we have to make sure that we can get people out of the building, right? So we want to make sure that we're planning for all of that. But that's kind of the next level that we're getting into.
The other thing we discussed is, because at one point there was a floor plan that had like a secondary entrance, like even more so than this, and we were really concerned about people coming in that secondary entrance and not knowing they were there and not having, visibility with that.
Right.
So that's why this is really like downplayed as like an after hours entrance and not a secondary way to get into the normal library.
Mhm.
Right, you talked about a lot of windows and stuff in the front. Are these gonna be like large spanning, like what kind of glass? I mean, is that gonna be just standard? Is it shatterproof? Is it?
So let's go to the next image here. So I'm actually going to zoom in. So this is where we're trending with the design. There's still some more evolution that needs to happen with this. Excuse me. But to your point, yes, we want to have nice large windows that kind of pull from that Swiss chalet sort of style that's very complementary to your downtown, but then is unique to the library as well. So we want to pull certain nodes from that, providing these large open windows. But then on the inside, we also want to use those windows as places where people can sit and read as well. So think on each one of these windows would be either a seating arrangement or would be some sort of built-in element that would have cushions on it so children could sit and read a book as well. Yes. So nice tall volumes. We're thinking this would not be a flat roof inside of here is what our goal is right now. It would be vaulted ceilings. So it creates kind of a nice open atmosphere on the inside there.
Are there any skylights considered or are they not cost efficient?
We haven't looked at skylights in this, and I'm not overly worried about natural light in this because the floor plan isn't that big. Like, especially in the summer, you want to control how much natural light gets in there for a couple of reasons. One, heat gain, but then also the UV light potentially damaging books. So we want to make sure we control that in the summer. In the winter, this height here, we're going to get a lot of natural light. And then if we keep the material palette, the different paint colors and things like that lighter in color, we'll actually get a lot of natural light bouncing around inside, but it's softer and it's not creating a lot of glare. And then these two windows here, we're still exploring these, but these would sit right over would sit right in line here. So we're bringing in natural light into that lobby. So effectively kind of acting like a skylight, but it's just vertical. Coming around so we're standing on 5th here. Looking back at the building, this is that corridor that takes you back to that back reading area. Coming around, looking out one of the church's windows, down at the reading garden area, how the building opens up to that and really kind of embraces it as a secondary room to the building. These windows don't currently exist for a couple reasons. One, we're trying to give your neighbor to the north some more privacy. Two, we need a presentation wall. So it kind of works for both of those. So if we have a projector, a monitor, whiteboard, whatever, that would live on that wall.
Did you talk to Dawn already?
So our community room right now is vaulted and the sound is horrible.
Yep.
Would there be some kind of mitigation?
I'm hoping we can make it worse, actually. Sorry, you're recording. No, yes, that is something that we pay attention constantly. We've done it in a number of different ways. There's a theater I used one product, a Montessori school did another one. In Oregon, we did it a different way. We floated some acoustic panels to help mitigate some of that. It's always something in our mind to try to control. So we do not want to recreate that. That is not our goal. But yeah.
How many people can that room substantially fit? Because the village doesn't have a ton of big spaces for, like, the community room is one of the only ones. So I mean, I think this could be a really good revenue source for the library if they choose to do that, if it can fit enough.
So it's roughly 50, not quite 50 by 20. So it's long and it's kind of narrow. That's one thing that's next on our list to evaluate. How can that room be divided up? Because that room would be vaulted. We also don't want to do the same thing where you have this wall that hangs down from the ceiling so that you can have a movable wall. That's the next iteration that we're getting into. But let's see. 32 in this arrangement. Obviously that changes with different setups in there, but the way that this is shown right now is 32.
So quite a bit smaller than what we have back there.
Yes, yeah. This would be from Railroad, looking back at the building. So this is that door that takes you to the trash enclosure. And what we're not showing in here is there would be some glass here that would look into that community room. It's not shown in this rendering. Questions?
It's gonna be a drive-up book drop.
We were not able to accommodate that at this point, just with the constraints of the site. It's so tight, and then with the hill, the way that comes in, we talked about that. But right now, the way that we are handling book returns is we're currently showing 2, but there would be an exterior book drop right here from the exterior from that entry corridor. You'd be there, it would be available at all times. So
Is that gonna be a fireproof room?
this room, we usually, yes. So it's not fireproof, but we try to harden that room within reason. God forbid somebody throws something in there. We can never outguess what people are going to do. It's kind of weird how creative people are when they are trying to destroy stuff. But if they would just put that to good. But yes, we try to think about those rooms as being hardened. The slots are also, we try to control them in a way of like, what's the biggest book that you foresee being returned? And maybe we size it to that. You see it getting larger, some of those conversations. Excuse me. But there would be one of these bins would be able to live in here for however long until it gets full. Staffing on that, peel it back when it is full. So that's how we're trying to accommodate it, right?
Okay.
And something we talked about, I don't know if there's been more discussions at the library board, but maybe making one of the parking spaces right in front of there, like a short-term parking, so that you would have the ability to just quickly park there, run up and drop off books and instead of having to park, in the DNR lot and then walking all the way over. To kind of mimic what a drive-through would
look like.
be,
Kind of
so,
like the post office.
Mhm.
10 minutes away.
yes, yeah, exactly. Obviously, we don't like to take out more parking spots,
Yeah.
But people use the book drop all the time.
yeah, it's pretty popular.
Okay, no one freak out when I ask this question.
Yeah,
Let me
that's
just
gonna
say
happen
that.
when I use that one too.
So the back wall of the multi-purpose room, are we built out as far as we can go? Like, don't freak out when I say this. If we added square footage, like, could we go back farther from multi-purpose rooms? I think really like that's the only concern I have is just that we're not gaining any space in the room that is utilized a ton. Like we're losing space in multi-purpose or in that back classroom area. Like, do we have is there any ability to go back farther or are we at like the very end of the lot?
Not without violating your setback ordinance.
Okay, that's what I want.
And just to explain that a little bit more. So the property line is here. And there's a 20-foot setback rule that we have to follow one.
We're right on it.
So that is this line here. So we have to follow one of, not both. So if this room got bigger, the building would have to.
Squish in,
so that
gotcha.
we could get it.
I think, and this is something the library board has to evaluate. If you took that large community room and you moved it over, you would eliminate obviously you would eliminate the children's garden. Perhaps there would be a way to make that community area, how can I say, larger by having movable walls on that other side. I'm just saying, and open up that parking lot, but you would be giving up that children's area. I think if you were going to do that, you would add the parking, you could add perhaps whatever movable walls, maybe a larger community room, but then you would give up that. So you'd have to decide, they'd have to decide on whether or not they felt that was important. And again, it's their decision, but is that something that could feasibly be done, or does that destroy?
Wasn't part of the concern too that people could jump on the roof if the building.
That's right. That's right.
We're not gonna gain enough parking anywhere there to make it impactful.
It's really not being set up for the community, it's the programming room.
Yeah.
This is a community room, and up at the home, they have a
one.
community room.
Yeah.
So there are two in town
Right.
that can be used.
And they,
But this will be mostly library programming.
okay,
So you're saying moving it over to the left?
moving it over to the left.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah, as you look at it now, just moving it and having a larger space. I'm not an architect. I was just looking at those options. The other thing I was going to mention is my son's village, and he lives right outside of New York City. They built a library, and they made the decision not to put any book drop off in their library. So they have it over. They share a parking lot with the YMCA, so they have it right on the edge of there. So if you're going to the Y or you're going to the library, you just drop it off in that bin. They didn't want anything in their library to drop off. When someone, I don't remember who mentioned, oh, was it you about a fire or what have you? That's not going to happen there because they don't want that. So just to throw it out.
Okay. So the one thing I was concerned about is, well, there's two things. One, I was actually gonna ask about what Peggy said about moving it over and making a bigger room. But if you're saying you can get on the roof, then obviously that's a bad deal. I'm nervous about a fireplace that's really big and really expensive because usually after like 10 years they start to have issues. And I don't know what the cost of that is. I just want a bulletproof or want them to be like safe from getting, a lot of fees later or costs later. And I'm also I love the outdoors, but I'm a little nervous about the amount of work it's going to take to keep up a garden area like that with a park that's really close by. I like the idea of it. It sounds wonderful and beautiful and great. I just am afraid in like 5 years, there's going to be issues with growth or, you know, that deck you showed us wood, right? So,
Well, that's one option we would explore.
right,
We're also looking at synthetic options as well.
okay.
And then with that design, how would you, in that fairy garden, no, it's not a fairy garden.
That's what you sell it. You see
Whatever
something
you
at
want to
work.
be.
Okay. How do you mitigate water coming down that hill into that fairy garden? Or into that garden? Is it gonna come down that driveway or that walkway? Or would we
Down
have,
to here.
or do we have, tiles underneath? Yeah, because
So drainage out,
It's
I'm
gonna-
worried about water getting in
Okay.
there.
okay,
It's more about getting the water that does get there back out.
back out.
So there's a couple things with that tiered
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
planter. One, we can help control some of the water that does get in there.
Okay,
And then we're still probably gonna have to have some sort of drain. This is me just based on experience. I think we're gonna have to have something in there to get water back. Especially once you look at the grades and everything they're training right towards that area. So getting water back out of there, so more that we can kind of step that wall, give opportunities for water to hit and soak into the soil. If it was just a concrete wall, one, it's not going to feel nice to sit next to that. Two, water would hit the backside of that wall and then who knows where it's going from there. So we're trying to use that in a multitude of different ways.
For the reading garden and the fireplace, I would just hesitate for us to take away things that are like what makes this library special and unique, like the showstopper, I hate that word, but the showstopper pieces of it, because this is the only library we're gonna build in the village. Like, this is it. We want it to be a destination. We want people to stay and hang out and read a book. Like, we want it to be inviting, but we also want it to be community draw. So when we take away some of those things that make it unique, then it's, you know, it's just another building in the village. So I would hesitate, if we're not gonna gain square footage, or we're not gonna gain usable space from those, that makes sense to take those pieces away.
well, I think for the most part, all of us really, I'm impressed with it. I'm just troubleshooting, just
Yeah.
throwing you some ideas out there.
I think before we explore taking that classroom and shifting it to one.
Oh, yeah.
Or the other. And here's one of the reasons is this aesthetic is, draws a lot from Swiss architecture. And so if we were to take, I come back to the
Yeah, it
area,
wouldn't look the
this
same.
portion and you shift it over here,
Mhm.
how does that start to work with the architecture? I think it starts to fall apart. And we almost go back to square zero and start working at it again. Where I would start is if, and this is something maybe we haven't talked about yet, but I would try to take and scoot the building further forward so that we could gain a little bit of square footage in that room. Now, that's a balancing act, right? Because I just said add square footage, right? So it's a balancing act. It's something we will explore. Because a long skinny room like this is not perfect. Obviously, they set up kind of like this room, right? If that was the presentation wall, now this room is much narrower. But if that was the presentation wall and we had tables set up to look at that for the outer edges would be kind of tough. So,
I mean, does that current classroom support the needs of what you do back there? The movie days, the Lego club? You know, some of those
So
high
we're
drawing
using
things.
About 300 square feet from what we have back there. The majority of our programs, that community room is oversized for only when we have animal programming in the summer. Is that space maxed out? And
Right.
maybe we could work our way into the reading garden area for those events and plan them around the summertime. So usually that's when they are. We don't really host this.
and the other thing that we're not showing on this plan here is we do want to try to get doors that open up to the reading garden directly from that classroom. So it gives you the opportunity of almost that inside outside, extending it further out as well.
Will this rooms be available to the public? Do we know what that's gonna look like?
I mean, so the biggest thing for me in this building is we have to have a space for elections. And it needs to be no smaller than what we have because we're already maxed out at space. So my hope if and when we would put some money into Village Hall is to obviously rework the offices and make it more functional, but make that space more usable. Because honestly, elections, we are crammed in there. So I would, yeah. I mean, I would say that would be available, but I also I want to make sure the library can fit their needs into this building, just in case it's not, because I would feel horrible if they go into this expecting to still be able to use that.
Sure.
In the plan, And then the only concern I would see with moving it forward is there any concern, just because that is obviously a popular thoroughway there when we have festivals downtown? If we move it any closer to that street, I mean, is that gonna, especially like Chris Kindle, I know Carrie's down there, and Becca's not with the chamber anymore, but would that create like traffic congestion for people trying to get into the library and people trying to go to that festival?
So I'm not proposing any closer than the sidewalk that's currently there.
Yeah.
The reason I don't want to do that is because I like to have a little green space in front of the library as well. And there is a significant, we talked about the grade here, but even from this back door to this front corner, there's a substantial drop across it. When you drive by it, it's kind of deceiving. It doesn't feel like that until you look at the grades, and it's like, wow, there's like almost 4 foot drop there.
And I think having this building like be the Swiss design, I think that's absolutely crucial because it's obviously downtown, but we also require all of our other businesses to follow this, so we really need to,
And it is interesting because the conversations come up several times about following Swiss to a T and then doing Swiss, but like with kind of a modern edge.
Yeah, I mean, of course it has
So
to be, yeah.
It's a delicate balance, and that's the one where I think we've struck the following Swiss to a T at this point.
Yeah.
And now how do we
Modern.
peel back some of those layers to make it feel a little bit better? Looking forward to. Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
You've had a good question.
Is there room for a village clerk?
I'm the same.
Fairy garden.
Can we all?
I'll be on the ferry. Yeah. That's a perfect spot for me, honestly. The harder to find, the better.
I hope that becomes the
Peggy's Fairy Garden. There's no Peggy.
The only reason I said Fairy Garden is
You have them at work.
I was in Milwaukee today. I was at a botanical and they had a fairy garden there. So I thought it is a nice thought. The kids could even, as a project, do a fairy garden, and you could display them outside because it is outside. Save your milk jugs.
Yeah. It looked beautiful. Brand new terrace wall.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it's gonna be much. Depending on who shows up.
That'd be great. It's gonna be exciting. Especially because we have $4.25 million of free money to build this, so.
And there will be a big golden plaque of the village board that was.
You're already getting Peggy's Fairy Garden. How
I'm
more do you
talking
want?
a big golden plaque.
Okay, I have a real question for you. I know we talked at one point about figuring out a place to keep the bells maybe from the building. Is that factored in somewhere? Is that more of like interior design kind of thing?
Don't know yet.
Okay.
It's still on our mind of where they would live. I haven't found like, oh, that's where they go yet. But we're thinking about it. I've got a couple thoughts, but I don't want to share them just yet.
Sounds good.
It is
Keep your
something
secret.
that like multiple people have brought up to me.
No, it is
Big
definitely one that
Yeah.
we want. Well, I mean, this site has history and we want to pay homage to that and be respectful of that as well. So if that's the one piece that people feel like that needs to live forward, then let's take that and run with it. So
Will that entranceway have a cover over it and for rain or anything, and you could hang a bell, I suppose, in that particular, no, it wouldn't. That's right. Never mind.
it would sit.
I like it that way instead. The other thing I mean, I don't have anything against Swiss design at all, but if you look in Switzerland, their modern designs are very linear, very plain, very white. And this, encompasses a lot of that. So you could do something with it to be the old Swiss look. But I think you have to incorporate that, hey, we have a new library and we're on the cutting edge of being modern Swiss. Yeah, because there is a whole new culture out there of Swiss design.
Supposedly the assisted living looks like the newer.
It does. Yes, it does.
Like when it's got spirals.
They're very in the straight lines. Yeah.
What do you think? You're gonna be looking out the window at this all the time.
Well, here's the one thing, with where the drop box is. And we were already talking about now taking one more parking spot away from the downtown by making it, 10-minute parking drop off. What's gonna happen when we have festivals and that street is blocked off? We created a potential issue because people aren't going to be able to pull up to the library, hop out of their car, drop off their book and drive off because that street's gonna be blocked off. We have a number of festival events that block that street off. So is there potential of putting that library drop box on the other side?
I think people would still be able to park over there and walk around to the boat drop.
Where are they parking?
So we've provided,
Wherever they park now, which is blocks away.
we are trying to get some sort of parking here that they would be able to utilize in those instances. So get them as close as we can. If we provide for a library of this size, if we had 2 drop boxes or one away from the entrance, my worry is if you pull it away from the entrance, nobody's going to know where it is 90% of the time. They're going to come to the library and just think, I want to drop my book off. I guess I'll just go inside and hand it at the circulation desk if it was back here. I think keeping it near that main entrance is probably the right place for it. And then we provide a secondary sort of parking drop-off spot for them to be able to do that.
So that temporary spot is within those 3? Or were you talking about putting a temporary, like when you were talking?
My idea was street parking right in front, but that would obviously be blocked off during
A lot
festivals.
of issues though, just in general. Spot in the downtown. And I think you're gonna have a hard time, not necessarily enforcing, maybe Jeff gets write more tickets, but I feel like people aren't going to pull in at 5 o'clock tonight and necessarily notice that that's a 10-minute parking spot, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I think parking though, especially anywhere in the village downtown, but especially in that little corridor, is already really rough. Like I think parking is a much bigger conversation. Because not even only the festivals, but what happens when the hotel opens. Like I think we could talk all night about what's gonna happen in parking because it's just generally.
Well, can you have a 10-minute parking spot that's only at 10 minutes when the library is open?
Or maybe make it the very furthest spot near the corner. I think that's less popular than the ones that are closer to downtown. I mean, keep in mind, this is all the way down near the chamber, basically.
Well, I'm aware, but I see that parking every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's full almost every.
I think we just have to,
Even when there's nothing going on.
balance. Because I'm anticipating people complaining that there's nowhere to park to drop off their book,
Which is
So-
what they're gonna do when the festivals are blocking off.
Well, and that's a couple weekends a year.
Let's hope that they're so excited to do the library. that they
Yes.
might.
I think residents have gotten used to the inconvenience that a festival weekend creates, yeah. So we can continue to discuss what it looks like.
Yeah, I think.
Does anybody know why they were digging down around that site? Oh, Becca, come on, tell us.
We did the archaeological survey there on Monday. My husband is a actual certified archaeologist, and he's certified through the state to handle human remains. So the village got a nice deal. Him and I was just his little gopher. But we dug 5 different test pits. There was also an engineer from CBC, who is testing different stuff, but we did not find any.
Seems, I was gonna
Honestly,
say,
that's a wild card. I'm just,
dispel that rumor if it is true, because it's one of those.
Nothing, but
Oh, good.
this is super minor, but we did find, so down on the railroad street end of that land is where the stables used to be in the 1800s. And we did find some historic debitage from when the stables were there, like colored glass and bricks and pipes and metal stuff, which we kept because we keep everything. But it might be something that would make a cool display at the library at some point with a picture of what used to be there. Very neat. Yeah. Yeah.
I think too, when you think about New Glarus's trends for festivals and, the cultural momentum we've established, everyone has to make accommodations for them. I mean, whether it be residents who have a lot of parking in front of their house or what have you, it's just the way it is because we chose to be that kind of community. So we can't always, we can always satisfy everything because if it's what's for the greater good, I guess, maybe, I don't know if that makes sense.
and there's a fair amount of people that have stopped in here to like register to vote. And they said they found New Glarus because they came to a festival and they fell in love with it. And so they decided to move here. I mean, those are like legit drawing people to live here. So I think the library is just gonna add to that. Or especially if it's the modern Swiss, I mean, I'm sure library traffic during festivals is gonna be 100 times increase, just because
Oh, yeah.
people are gonna wanna check it out, so.
Especially if.
Whether you like it or not.
That actually brings to a point though, that outdoor space, are
Mhm.
you gonna have a way to control people during festival weekends from going in and out of
I
that
thought about that
space?
too,
I
or like
think
jumping in.
If you look at Swiss Church Lawn,
Yeah.
right, it's full on
Mhm.
festival weekends, and I don't think you want people taking their stein of beer in your.
Even
space.
during a normal week, I mean, that's a great little hidey hole for a couple middle school students hanging out.
I was gonna go and drink there.
Can we put gates?
Maybe you should need a security.
Or does that go against like code in terms of getting people out? I mean, I know it doesn't prevent people from jumping in, because I'm sure that will happen, but.
So this side,
Crazy.
yes, we can look at gates.
Yeah.
It disrupts the flow
Right.
of it, but code would allow you to have gates there. It's not gonna prevent people from hopping it, right? This one here is like 15 to 20 feet across because we're at that 20-foot
Oh, yeah.
setback. Now, obviously, this planter cuts in and reduces that. I don't know the exact definition of that. But yes, we could always explore that. That's also something that you could look at, like we could plan it as an alternate as we go forward. Maybe not build it day one, and if it becomes an issue, then they could get built at some point as well. But we've planned for them so that when they do get built, they're not just these chain link fences and usually kind of flow with the design.
And not that it would keep people out, but we could put barricades, like, obviously the library is not included in the open and talks area of a festival, so like that garden area. I mean, it could be, I guess, if that's, they wanted to put.
Block.
Yeah, but I would, no, I mean the back reading garden, yeah. So I feel like we could put, it's not gonna keep people out, but yeah.
You could also embrace it and use the library as some sort of program during that thing, right?
We don't have alcohol on the depends on the festival.
That is fair. That is fair.
Yeah.
I suppose aesthetically, you couldn't do something with like a privacy fence, like white barbed wire or.
How do you end up fairy garden with barbed wires?
No, I mean, I'm talking something.
Jeff is gonna get so many calls for pulling people off the barbed wires and he's like.
I think he's got a doctor's appointment tomorrow.
I just need a few more hours and I got my architectural degree. I'm short, you can tell.
She'll send me all of her ideas tomorrow.
I was thinking of something sort of like but that might be aesthetically not a good idea, like a privacy.
Like a state prison.
Gazebo. Sans the fairy garden sign, I suppose.
Yeah, let's.
No, I don't know. I was saying. just
I'm gonna go back to the office.
They want
Well,
barbed wire.
Yeah.
And I'll look
Just know how to explain what I.
They want $1 million for the barbed wire.
Yeah.
I didn't really mean that. We're not like.
Play a classroom, we're adding park. Very good, very good. And election.
And election prize. Okay.
Oh, boy.
I don't want you to get rid of that garden though. It's beautiful.
It's why you just surrounded him.
We just want Maine kids to try to get in there and get the white barbed wire. Don't miss fairies, kids. Watch out in the winter.
That'd be white.
They're gonna be presenting again when we get more.
Yeah.
Bigger, better plans, so.
So we'll have a community outreach meeting on January 9, 5 to 7 p.m. So help spread the word on that.
When does this have to be final, like this site plan and, to stay on track?
Yeah, we're at the point where we're moving small things around, like we're not making major shifts to the floor plans or to the building. We're kind of refining things. The major pieces have kind of landed where they need to be. We were just talking about restroom layouts, but that's like a small minor thing, right? From a function standpoint, the way the library needs it to work, that's starting to kind of work. Design pieces, exterior, those are yet to be refined or fully refined. So I'd say we're kind of entering in that schematic design towards the end of schematic design, which there's the 3 levels. There's schematic design, design development, and then construction documents. And CDs, that final phase is the ones that we then go out to bid for. We have a little bit of fluff on the back end of this because we know that there's that drop dead deadline at the end. We're trying to help protect that as much as possible. So I don't want to eat into that. We're at a good point as long as we kind of hit or keep moving. We're not blowing anything up as far as the design goes, then we should be good. So it's a progression, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So remember what goes on in here stays in here. No white barbed wire beyond.
That's why
this
it's
door.
recorded and it goes to YouTube, but that's great. But you're right, Peggy.
Maybe we'll just put the barbed wire on the roof.
Yeah. Well, I was shooting for examples that just came out.
Keep explaining it.
Okay, item 8, public works and safety, consideration discussion downtown handicap parking.
Okay, so on page 38, I have a brief memo here. So the Public Works, Public Safety Committee discussed potentially adding some more handicap parking spaces to downtown. ADA guidelines say 1 handicap parking space per 25 spaces in a parking lot. I've struggled to find an exact guideline on street parking. I believe Scott found maybe 1% need to be handicapped. The other consideration on why it's a little bit difficult is that handicap spaces can be no more than 2.08% slope. And as you know, Glarus is a little bit hilly, so that's difficult to find in some areas. But after discussion, we decided adding 1 more space in the central downtown was useful because it's as close to as many businesses as possible. So on the second page of the memo, you can see the aerial I provided with the existing handicap spot and then a proposed new spot, which would be right in front of the new Alpine store. And then additionally, I looked where else could we add that would be spaced out enough. And so on the last page of the memo, I proposed 2 additional spots. One that we had discussed in the past at Village Hall, right on the street to the south of Village Hall. And then just making one of the festival handicap spots a permanent handicap spot next to Hutch and Hyde. So all in all, the committee reviewed this and recommended adding these 3 handicap spots and wanted to bring it to the board for approval.
I move to approve those 3 spots.
I'll second. Second.
So there's one by Alpine, you're talking on Second Street?
No, this is the proposed one. This is the existing.
That's
Oh.
what I think, yeah.
This
None-
is
none by
Alpine.
Alpine.
This
Okay,
is the
okay.
main. Yep.
As we reviewed
Are
it,
you
it's,
putting it in the first spot or the second? There's only 2 spots there, and one of them is just. right
This
up
is
the
Alpine.
crosswalk. You're right.
The one
The old bank.
across.
Yeah.
Citizen.
it's pretty balanced.
There are
I think
2 there.
Lauren did balance those 3 out pretty nicely throughout the village, I thought.
Yeah.
Larry, you made a motion, did you?
Yeah, to approve those 3 locations.
John said,
John,
John seconded, okay. Any further discussion?
nope.
Hearing none, all in. We need our other board member in here. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Okay, personnel finance, consideration discussion 18-month CD investment. It's on 41.
Yep, so we have another CD expiring. Sorry, I have a typo in here. It's expiring January 8th. Keep forgetting that date. So I did reach out to the 3 local banks to get an 18-month CD rate. Woodford came in at the highest at 4.3% APY. A discussion that we had at Finance and Personnel is the fact that our other funds and our bank accounts are actually getting 5.10% through the local government investment pool. So it's actually getting better rates than a CD would. However, that rate can be more variable. So the benefit of the CD is we're locking in a rate that's slightly smaller than what we're getting, but it's for 18 months versus LGIP is getting a higher rate, but could go down in the next 18 months. So there's kind of pros and cons to both. This is only 150,000. So it's kind of diversifying, putting some in a CD while others in LGIP. So
Where's the currency? Which bank?
Bank of New Blair.
It's all currently at Bank of New Blair, so all 3 CDs are.
So you're afraid that if you put it in the LGIP, that the interest rate's gonna change, but
I'm not necessarily afraid of that. That's just what investment professionals are predicting, based on multiple things. I mean, specifically on who won the election, looking at, what that was the last time, just,
And that one can fluctuate, but the other ones are locked in, right?
for 18 months.
and we're looking at 18 months.
Yeah, now our bank interest that we've been getting, State Bank, sorry, Lakeridge adds 0.5 onto whatever that LGIP rate is. So that's something that they do for us since we keep our money there. I mean, only less than a handful of years ago, we made $6,000 total on general fund interest. This year, we made
over 100,000.
yeah, 100 and a lot. So
Okay.
that's how much that can fluctuate. But I think that the bigger conversation here is, does the board want to stick with the CD ladder? Are we just comfortable putting money there and not worrying about it, but maybe taking a little less upfront? Or is the board interested in possibly looking at other investment options? Just because CDs, when we went into this ladder program, were really lucrative. But
Yeah.
that's not what people are forecasting, like this time next year, it to look like.
I would like to look elsewhere.
Diversity is okay.
Well, some of our discussion Roger and I had was, one, we're dealing with somebody local, in terms of our investing. 2, there is that stability for 18 months. If and when it does happen, and we're talking not even 1%.
Yeah.
So that was our rationale as we moved it up to you folks to decide what is the best.
I don't think there's necessarily a wrong choice with this one. I think this is just could be the prelude into what the board decides to do with the village investment portfolio going forward, because we're gonna have these CDs expiring every 6 months. So we're gonna be revisiting this again in 6 months.
I think it'd be interesting to see what else is out there. what the other options are.
Aren't there high interest checking accounts or high interest savings accounts? that
We're
do
about as
5?
high, we're about as high interest of a checking savings that I think you get in today's
And what is it?
The 5.10, all of our bank accounts are getting 5.10.
So for example, in the financials I sent you for November, Fund 10 made over $8,000 in interest just in November.
How, like historically, how high or low has that local government investment?
I mean, like I said, less than 5 years ago, we made $6,000 total for the whole year. So it was like nothing.
2%.
So I think we hit
In the
the
last-
highest it's ever been,
Right.
like this past year.
Yeah.
But it's gotten really low.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah.
Okay, somebody that's good with math. If we're gonna talk about this again in 6 months, how much are we gonna make if we do 4.3 versus 5.1 over 6 months?
You're not gonna do this one. So we have 3 CDs. So this one won't expire for 18 months. It'll be a different CD that's coming up and these rates will be completely different 6 months from now. Like the
Oh, I
if
see
it goes
what
as
you're
it's predicted, we're probably not gonna have a 4. Maybe it will. I don't know. I guess I'm not an investment professional, which going back to when we started all this, Lauren and I reminded the board that if we were not gonna hire an investment professional, these were gonna be decisions that the board really had to make.
And I guess I'll just reiterate that Kelsey and I did want to use an investment professional. Ellers, for example, provides investment services. We've been talking with another investment firm that specifically does bond reserves. So that's like their bread and butter. And so we've been kind of looking at that again. Goff was very much adamant that we only did CDs. He's no longer on the board. And so Kelsey and I wondered if maybe the board had a different appetite for some other investment options. We'd have to revise our investment policy. But there are professionals out there that can do this for us. So it's not Kelsey and I trying to figure out.
And they charge us like a percent of.
On what we make, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's where I'm really hesitant to say, do this or do that, because I'm not an investment professional, and I know this came up the last time we talked about this, so, to make these decisions, it really has to come from the board and from staff.
When they're still over 4%, you don't need an investment professional.
But I think if we
when
want
they
to
get
build
down
them, we
to
do.
1%, yeah, then maybe, okay, where else do you gonna?
But I think it's important to look at how do we lock in those higher interest rates for as long as possible.
And we could maybe be
Absolutely.
doing more with our money than just CDs if we used an investment professional. We're not paying them anything out of our pocket. We're paying them a 1% of what money they make for us.
Well, you can take the 1% off the.
Yeah.
8%.
However, I think at this point, though, do investment professionals know what's going to happen when we have a new president?
Better than me. I mean, I think they are highly trained in
Knowing
investing. They've been through, a lot of these people have been through
Right.
ups and downs and have a, pretty, obviously the market is the market, it's unpredictable to an extent, but I definitely agree with Lauren that I don't think we want to wait until interest rates are nothing to be like, oh, we need to look at something different because we're not gonna.
And I'll add too that it's not gonna be like stock market
Right.
investing.
It's all
It's gonna
very
be very safe.
Yeah.
Like the investment firm we've been talking to now does a lot of securities, which are very safe investments as well. But like that's not something I feel comfortable trying to
Right.
navigate myself.
Who is the investment firm?
So Ellers is our financial advisor. They provide investing. The firm that Kelsey and I have been talking to is called Arbitrage Management Group.
Yeah, I think so.
Can they give us any, like estimates of like what they think they can do with it? So they take what we have now and they give us, projected estimates on
Yeah.
what it could look like.
Yeah,
maybe
so at
that's a
our
good
next
place to
meeting,
start.
that group, AMG, is gonna present to you all to
That's good.
just give you an option. And this might be a good way to like
Dip your
step
toe in
into
the water.
investing, because they specifically just do, so every time we go out for what's the word?
Bond.
But with the revenue bond, every time we go out for a revenue bond, we have to keep some funds available. It's called a reserve fund, and it's basically just extra money in case for some reason we can't make a debt payment, that it's there to pay for it, and it's requirement. And so it just sits there. And so their bread and butter is investing that, and it is allowable, and it's kind of their niche. And so that's just kind of one pocket that we could explore, make money, and potentially help pay off our debt quicker.
And revenue bonds have I don't want to say loose because it's not loose, but revenue bonds are for us specifically utility related. When we do a street project, or we do something that's village, that's a general obligation, and there's a lot stricter on, you know, what you can and can't do.
Have you talked to any other administrators or any of our neighbors to find out who they use or what they do?
I know many of them use Ellers for investing. This group that we've been talking to, AMG, are not super into Wisconsin. They're kind of all over the country, but they have not broken into Wisconsin really yet. So we'll want to weigh that and whether we feel comfortable with them. That's why I wanted them to come actually, you know, present to you guys and get your thoughts on it too. But
This is on the 7th.
yeah,
And when Ellers presented the last time we talked about the investment policy, she had given us like, you know, if you put this in, this is what you'll get, you know, based on, so they did give us a pretty comprehensive look at that point, you know, what we could do.
Well, what was it?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean,
Not that we
it's on the
want
agenda.
a bunch of people to present to us, 'cause I know that gets to be a lot, but
Yeah.
could Ellers put something together too, like just that you guys could share in a packet that we could look at?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just so there's.
and maybe we invite Ellers to come to the next meeting and
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you wait and see how you feel about, you know, the next presentation. Because like Lauren said, that's a really easy way to like dip your toe into investing and be like, yeah, let's do it. Then we, you know, can look at investing funds to just the revenue bond. But obviously, I guess the other thing to note is that if we stick with the CD plan, this is all of our reserve money that's stuck into these CDs
For
and
18 months.
yeah, and we can't pull them back unless we
Well, I thought
absolutely had to. We can,
with
but
a
we,
penalty, right?
yes, but it was on like, the village needs this money, not like necessarily the village wants to take it from you and invest it elsewhere.
yes, I think we specifically said we would not do that.
It was like. the
I'm not
village
saying
can't
that,
take
I'm
it.
just
Yeah,
saying, in an emergency situation.
Yeah.
Get
Yes, if we had
No,
asked for
penalty.
faster and had to pull it, we definitely could, but if it was we wanna go with Ellers instead of you.
So would our vision still be to invest what we did now, the $500,000?
That would be up to the board and obviously investment professionals.
And that's a question to ask them.
Yeah, I think we started with the reserves because it was easy to manage.
Yeah. And I think what will be helpful too is Ellers can help us manage like how much cash we need on hand at any given time and kind of give us some guidance on that. That was one thing Kelsey and I were a little nervous about is how much should we have for liquidity's sake versus what can we have and how frequently should we be replenishing? And that's all things that Ellers.
And maybe that's something we should know anyway as board members. So, yeah.
Here, piece of bags.
Do we need to make a decision about this particular CD?
Yes, it is expiring.
So we pretty
So
much
we're
like
not
to go
gonna
with this.
Automatic roll.
So we don't have to, I just need to know if you wanna reinvest it, which bank do you wanna reinvest in, or do you wanna pull it and put it back into our Lake Ridge account? That's what I need to know, because it expires the day after the next board meeting. And I don't know when the time is on that, so it's like, does it expire at midnight? You know
So
what I
we
mean?
can pull it out and just put it in the bank, in the Lake Ridge account.
We have a reserve account in Lake
Right.
Ridge right now that has like $7,000, because that was like the interest.
Well,
then we
pull it
decide.
out and reinvest it if that's our choice. If we decide we're gonna put it back in, then we only.
Right, then we just do new CD.
Yeah, 2 weeks of it being out and back in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Doesn't
So-
matter to me.
yeah, that seems okay to me. Do it, Peggy.
How do we do it all? We make a motion to, pull this. Until we,
Put back into our,
LGIP.
yeah,
our general,
okay.
until we, until further notice or until, till further notice.
Do you have any recommendations?
I don't know,
for
that sounds
motion?
kind of dicey.
I would just take out the last part and just say pull
Pull
it.
it
Pull it.
back into the
Yeah.
village.
Okay, we don't have to add presentations or, you know.
Nope, because we'll just make a decision when we're ready to make a decision on that.
In a second. Feel strongly.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. President's report. Consideration, discussion, of committee appointments. Kelsey, you want to rattle them off?
Yeah, we just had a few changes. We added John to the board, obviously, at the last meeting, so we did some moving around here. Jamie will now be in Parks and Personnel and Finance. She's also the Parks Chair. Jamie was spread pretty thin between a lot of these. She was
I was
at
like, I lost CDA,
Yeah.
I was like, I lost a ton.
So Jamie is the Parks Chair and then on Personnel and Finance, which is something that she was in. We put John in Jamie's CDA spot, and then he replaced Goff on the Public Works, and Public Safety Committee. And then our Plan Commission, the reason that we took off the board member from that is technically that really should be a non-board citizen member, just, it kind of got filled that way because the citizen member became a board member. So Chris Anderson, who, submitted a letter of interest to village board, agreed to be on Plan.
Oh, great.
So those are the changes. And then also I'm removing all personal addresses from the committee list.
Thank you
because
so
this is
much.
available online. So,
And my historical preservation
yes.
commitment ends on April 1st. And I'm the chair, and Becca said she'd be willing to be the chair of that committee. That,
Because I was a resident member of that too.
yeah, she's on it.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that's a typo, Larry, that April 1st. I'm pretty sure it should be April 30th, like the rest of them, because it's after the election. So I actually think that's 30th. Sorry about that.
Kelsey, should the library building committee?
We
be
aren't
on this
meeting
list?
before then, so I'm not.
Should the what? I'm sorry, what?
No.
Building committee.
Because when the library's built, it'll be dissolved.
And there will be a cemetery commission put together.
Oh, yeah. So the cemetery committee is also off this list because that's done now.
Yeah, but then we'll create. a
Right, the committee is off, but the commission will be on.
Once we create it.
We'll keep you abreast of all the changes.
I am interested in being the board rep on.
We need a motion to approve the committee appointments.
I move to approve the committee appointment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Anything else from the board?
So the cemetery board that's going to happen, that's going to be one of us. And there's going to be regular people on there.
Regular, what are you trying to say about us?
I know regular people.
And
Be like citizens?
electors from other, so like you, if I can talk somebody into doing it from the town, can we put a town person on there? We're not asking Chris Iverson.
I believe so. I'd have to, I think
Yeah,
I did put it down. I'll have to look at it again. We have one representative from a church, community church.
Yeah.
And then 3 other citizen members, I believe, and we said at least majority has to be a village residents.
Yeah.
Is how I said it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, since we're funding the cemetery.
Okay. And so the Parks Board is already full. We couldn't add somebody else from the town on that too, could we?
That's a village committee, the standing. committee.
Yeah, that would have to be a bigger discussion on.
Okay.
I mean, like.
Then we'd have to have a joint, which we do have a joint parks. Already don't we?
No, we have no ETC.
Right, I think there used to be a joint one
There
back
used
in
to
the
be a
day.
joint parks.
We don't
Committee.
now.
We had a joint meeting between village, town and school district. And there used to be, you're right, a joint village and town, but we don't have anyone appointed to those.
So my purpose to this is to have someone that hears what's going on and how much money we're spending on things, and then goes back to their town board and says, hey, we don't pay for anything. Let's try paying for something. That's my point. So if you don't want to do it, we don't have to, but that was one of the things that I was going to try to work on this next year.
If
Because
they were like already putting money in, I'd be like, yeah, give them a seat. But if they're not doing anything, I
Right.
kind of hesitate to let them vote on stuff.
but it's one person. And we need to
But
get them to
these
start
committees
paying
are
for
only
things.
3, so then we'd have to add 2 more people on.
Like,
I think that there's a need, I mean,
They're not gonna,
the town has a parks
That's the
committee for
point.
the town, so I think in the past, or like, we've had the village town, committee and the park town committee come together. Or like, I know the town parks chairperson has come here to present on things, so I don't know if that needs to be more of a discussion of getting the chairs meeting.
who's the chair for the town parks?
It was,
Are we still recording? Are we done recording?
I
still
don't,
recording, we have not adjourned.
it was Harry Pullen.
I think that's who it was the last time that they presented here.
Yeah, I don't want that. Okay. I'm done.
I'll just make a comment that, in light of what happened yesterday. When I was delivering milk, I used to deliver milk to that school.
I played basketball there.
Uh,
I played basketball there.
So with that being said, we are adjourned.
Okay,
Time to